All right, so let's officially start the interview.
Oh,
Amazing having Dorian Electra here, musical genius, songwriter, producer, really just like lovable character, rock star of the 21st century. 21st century. Thanks for popping in. How are you doing?
I am doing honestly fantastic given these circumstances that we're in. And yeah, just like trying to focus on making a bunch of new music. My tour was postponed, and so just going fully ahead into music world. Yeah.
Which tour would this be, or would this have been? Because when I see you, you're always performing somewhere. You're always doing something. You're always on a stage. You always seem to be. It's almost as if there's a portable stage with you everywhere you go.
Truly, truly, that is honestly how I feel too. It is the Flamboyant Tour, Chapter 2, like slightly
Got
big.
it.
This a second part of my like album tour. Yeah.
Got
Like,
it.
some of it already went to Australia and did like the Midwest, but yeah, East Coast and West Coast will be like whenever it's safe to do it again. Yeah.
Got it. I've asked you this in private, but I do want to do it again in public. I want to ask you about some of those shows
Yeah.
because, just your internet following is but a fraction of some of the artists I've covered and followed, and yet your shows look like the most lit shows of all time. Like the outfits, the dancers, the crowds are going absolutely insane, and it just seems like it's just like packed from wall to wall, and everyone is just like dancing and sweating on each other and just like going insane. Obviously a bad scenario for the C word,
Yeah.
which is why you have to cancel. I understand that you want everybody to be safe,
Yeah.
but still, prior to that, I mean, it's like the most insane captures of some live performances that I've seen.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I feel like really lucky. I feel like everybody that comes out to my shows and like all my fans and stuff are just really intense, which is awesome. Like even if it's like a smaller number of people, I feel like the intensity is so intense. Like people will be like in full looks and do like insane makeup and just like go really crazy with all that. And to me, that's like the most fun part about it, the energy.
Yeah, it's almost like even though the crowd is a bit niche, they're going to show up, and the reason why you tell me if this is how you feel is it because you feel like either musically or visually or through the ethos in your art, are you giving the crowd something that nobody else is?
I mean, I have been told, but I think a lot of it has to do with people feeling like different like representation in pop music has been pretty limited in just the past, like I mean pretty much until now. I feel like we're starting to see so many more diverse pop acts, and especially when it comes to like gender identity and sexuality, and I think that's like a big part of it for so many people and why it energizes so many people, especially like a lot of my younger fans and stuff that have like written to me and like write me little notes or message me and stuff like that. And it's just been so meaningful to be able to like connect with them on that level, and also remember when I was like a stan of certain groups and certain bands and stuff when I was like 14, and how much those influenced me, and then kind of like getting to see a similar community among my own fans and stuff is so crazy, and like yeah, probably like the most meaningful part of what I'm doing for me personally.
Now that you've sort of had this experience doing these tours, doing these shows, is this making you take a different approach with the art that you're actually making? Because prior to Flamboyant coming out, you didn't have these crowds yet sort of reflecting back at you, sort of what you're delivering to them in a way, because you're kind of representing something that they identify with. Is this making you take a different approach to your lyrics, your instrumentals, just anything having to do with your creative process now that you have a better sense of the crowd that you're actually catering to?
Yeah, that's really interesting because I feel like when I put out like Career Boy in which was like the first single of the album in like 2018, like summer of 2018, I honestly had no idea like how people were going to react, and I was like, are people gonna think, like, I really didn't know what people were gonna think. I was just like, I just feel like I have to put this out. I just feel like I have to like represent myself this way, and maybe it's not gonna pop off, or maybe some people will think I'm just like, it's like some big joke, or they won't really get it or whatever. And then seeing like the positive reaction to that totally exceeded my expectations was super for me, and was super like, okay, I should just be myself and just go for it and do it. And that there are people out there that are receptive and like this is resonating with them in some way. So I feel like on the one hand, it can be tempting to be like, oh, like, you know, certain things from my first album, like this is what worked and this is what people are into, especially when it comes to the more like kind of empowering anthems and more positive stuff like that, which is really important to me. But I feel like the one thing that I've learned is rather than be like, oh, this is what worked and let me try to create that, it's more like, you know, not trying to mimic specific things that have worked in the past, but rather like the general idea of I can get pretty weird, I can get pretty out there, and people are like open-minded and willing to go with me there into new places where even I'm like, I don't know if this is like too weird for me to put out, you know, like the new stuff I'm working on and whatever. But I feel like really confident now that have all this support from people from my first album, if that makes any sense. Like just kind of the idea of I can kind of do my own thing and not be afraid to experiment, and that people are excited for new stuff like that.
Talking about you know, that change that came along with the Career Boy single, and sort of comparing that to a lot of the singles that you put out before that stylistically and even in terms of how you present yourself are pretty different. What about Career Boy do you feel like was kind of a breaking point? Were you, you know, hitting upon something that you were just experimenting with? Were you being more true to yourself and your identity personally? What was it about sort of that change that came along with that sound and this current era of your music? What sort of brought that transition, I guess?
Yeah, you know, it's really interesting because I feel like a lot of it really did have to do with my gender identity, and I wanted to make like big pop music, but I felt a little bit weird with like doing like really voices and stuff like that. And like on Career Boy, I do like a really feminine voice as like the main like Career Boy and all that. But it's like, it's funny because I feel like somehow it's just a weird thing in my own mind where I'm like, if I just say in the lyrics like something like I'm a guy, or like I'm a man to man, or Career Boy, like I just say some like masculine like word or something, it like in my mind it unlocks this whole thing where I then feel comfortable like doing whatever vocally and creatively and like aesthetically and like fashion wise with how I style myself in the video and everything. So it is, once I was like, okay, I'm putting this out there, I'm saying like I'm a career boy, like people might be like, what? But then I'm like, I don't care, and I'm just gonna go for it. And it's just something about that statement and being like, here's me in this body with this voice and performing this way, wearing this, sounding like this, and here you go. I don't know, it's sometimes like a bizarre mix of like a political statement, also just a weird personal thing that's almost like something, yeah, that I have to like unlock in my own mind to feel comfortable you know, singing and making music and stuff, if that makes any sense.
No, it does, and it brings me some insight into something that I've always been curious about. When you do a song like Career Boy, or you do a song like, you know, Daddy Likes, or you're doing a you know, or you're doing a man to man, to what extent is the narrative and sort of what you're putting forth there personally a part of gender identity, and to what extent is it you embodying a character? Because obviously Career Boy is not just you sort of playing with gender roles, but it's also you playing with somebody who, you know, works in a corporate environment and has, you know, sort of like a type A personality and is a workaholic, you know. So where exactly, like, you know, do those lines draw? Is it sort of, you know, part gender identity, part character building and acting and character portrait, you know, making?
Yeah, I feel like for me, those lines are really ambiguous, but that's like a part of the statement too, you know, is that I appreciate the ambiguity and having all these different characters that are just as much an authentic part of myself as they are like some, you know, different imaginary person that I'm exploring. Because I feel like so many of us are complex human beings, and we can all, you know, embody all kinds of contradictions and differences and stuff. So yeah, I feel like a lot of time, like Career Boy definitely is me. I'm absolutely a workaholic. I don't like coffee though, because it makes me feel too anxious. That's like the only like false thing in there. And that it's a 9-to-5 job. It's more like a all the time job, but it's fun because, you know, I get to be an artist and everything now. But yeah, so, and yeah, Man to Man is more like Daddy Like, I would say, is also me in a lot of ways. Like, it's just like personally, I don't know, I feel like the lines are blurred between like the character and the reality, but I feel like a lot of artists do that in a way. And I think that it also helps the listener kind of like take on this character for themselves in a way that can be like help unlock something for them. Like, one thing I didn't expect was all these like queer people about Career Boy being like, I work in an office and like this song makes me feel like I'm like not so out of place and like it's very empowering for me. And that was something I really didn't expect, because I just had no idea like that people would perceive it and take it in that way. And like, that's really cool. And so, yeah, I guess seeing characters as something that we can take and like put into our own lives can be like an interesting thing. Yeah.
It's really cool hearing you sort of shed some light on that, because it is something that's been on my mind, that and sort of what has influenced a lot of what you're doing musically and just sort of visually as well, because obviously as much as you're open about you know, how your gender identity and sort of like queerness influences what you do, there's also a huge element of, you know, it seems like there's a lot of goth that goes into what you do. There's a lot of glam that goes into what you do. I mean, in terms of how you deliver yourself, especially when I see, you know, the clips of the live shows, which, I mean, if it wasn't for the C word, I would probably be at one soon. You know, it's you really come off to me personally as like a rock star. Something that, you know, just from following you on social media that I've kind of come into as well. You know, another thing that is probably an influence on that is maybe your dad, who seems like a rock star in his own right. You know, when I see that guy, he looks like a really old school metalhead type of dude, and it's like, okay, you know, now I'm sort of, you know, putting some things together. I'm like, okay, that's where some of it comes from too, because, you know. I don't know how much light you want to shed on your relationship with your father and sort of what he does and how he presents himself to the world. But you know, again, your dad is a rock star in his own right as well.
Definitely. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So my dad, Paul, the rock star realtor,
The rock star realtor.
Yeah.
Say it again. The rock star realtor.
Realtor. Yeah. So if you're looking, if any real estate needs in the state of California, Texas, he could take care of for you. Yeah, so he is just
which keep in mind, when I heard about this was when you had got a hold of his limo for you and your friends or your band.
Oh,
and I saw on the side the rock star realtor. I'm like, why is Dorian riding in a limo? Or this is the rock star realtor on the side.
Yeah,
and that's when I had to go look that up.
He likes to drive. It's a 1996 Cadillac limo, and
Yeah.
Like he drives his like clients around. He wears a little chauffeur hat and he like drives them around. And he has like, it has like a little VHS player in the back, and he has like Madonna
Wow.
VHSs back there for people to watch. Yeah. But yeah, so he is really iconic. He's always been in like rock cover bands and stuff. And also my mom was she's an artist, and she also used to be a singer and then also did musical theater, and their names are Paul and Paula, which is really funny. They're divorced, but they're still good. And yes, both of them were just kind of like, yeah, they're both like really creative people. They were always really supportive of me growing up. And but my dad especially was always really into classic rock, got me really into like Alice Cooper and the Stones and you know, I mean, everybody, and took me to see like a lot of acts. Like when I was, you know, when I was really young, I've seen the Stones like 10 times with him, and always like looked up to Mick Jagger, and I kind of like identified from a young age with my dad, so with like these like male rock stars that were able to do like feminine things and like this glamorous, flamboyant way, but they were still like dudes at the end of the day. And yeah, so I feel like although he also taught me an appreciation for like, he's also a huge Madonna fan. And so, and also it was so funny too, like he was always into pop music way before I was. Like, I was totally like a snob in high school and stuff. And I was like, oh, like I only like this ironically. And then he was like, you need to check out this Kesha person. And like, you should check out, like, look at what this person's doing and all this. And,
wow, your dad's a total fucking music Chad.
Yeah, yeah, he, but I mean, and yeah, I mean, he was like, he's never been pretentious about music ever. And then also like with my mom, she was a big, like, huge, like, Bowie fan and all that. But then she also, she had a store where she like designed jewelry and sold it, and she only play Baroque classical music, like not romantic era, like no opera. I mean, she would play that sometimes, but it was usually like Baroque was the vibe. And so like I just grew up around a ton of that, and so like it's been really fun getting back into those roots, like the rock stuff and like the Baroque stuff, you know, kind of coming to it on my own. But it's definitely deep in my subconscious mind.
Yeah, it's like already in there genetically, essentially.
Yeah.
That's insane that you've dropped so much personal history there that after listening to Flamboyant so many times, and also just looking at the art that accompanies, you know, your shirts and everything like that, it's like there's so many little pieces of all of that. Like the Cooper is here, you know, some of the Baroque stuff turns up on Musical Genius, and it's like, you know, it's just like an insane menagerie of tons of different shit. So, you know, to get back to sort of what we initiated the conversation about, sort of being holed up now, because we essentially have no choice right now in this moment to kind of be doing what's, you know, for the greater good here. You know, you're staying creative, taking the chance to hunker down here and start working on some new stuff. I personally have been worried about, like, you know, how long all of this is going to go on and what are artists going to be doing with themselves in the meantime, because while sure you can make as much music as you want while you're here, it's kind of hard to want to throw out there and kind of put all these resources into a new record that you can't necessarily tour behind immediately, because we're still at a point in the music industry where you know, that's where, you know, people such as yourself are making a bulk of their money. You know, you put out the record, people are excited about it, and then you're charging them to get through the door to see the show. And then you're, you know, doing merch at the show too. So, you know, it all kind of pans out that way. But I imagine it can be hard to get excited for that stage that, you know, the record is essentially for, if that can't happen and you don't know how long all that's going to be on hold.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's interesting because my plans already were to, you know, I was already going to be touring so much this year that I was going to focus on like making new music and dropping some singles and stuff like that. Like I was planning to do my second album next year anyway. So for me, I'm pretty lucky it kind of works out. But I do feel really bad for a lot of other artists, especially artists who like drop their album like the week that all the shit hit the fan and stuff. You know, because that's, especially if it's like their first album and stuff like that, just kind of taking the wind out of the sails, if I use that correctly. But yeah, but I think it'll be really interesting. I mean, to me, the biggest thing is like, I hope that it can become safe enough to do music videos and to get together like a small crew eventually, you know, when that is safe. Because like, to me, that's what I really look forward to so much, is making the music videos. Like I'm already working on, with Weston, a couple of different pitches for some different singles and music videos that like we're really excited about.
Yeah. And as far as the music that you're making at this point, writing, producing, maybe not that limited, because you can probably reach out to any producer you want to over the internet. In the state that you're currently in, how much are you able to do and get done? How close are you able to get to that vision that you know you're ultimately looking to achieve? You know, just now hold up where you are.
You know, I'm very used to working with producers collaboratively in person. Like I'm not like, I'll just come up with like song concepts and stuff on my own, and like a few lines of lyrics, but usually like I really don't write or work on music at all in the studio with someone. So I just got a microphone, and the interface and all that. So I'm going to be like recording my own vocals at home and stuff now, and working with people remotely. And because I did these 2 writing camps, one in Las Vegas and one at this castle last month, and the month before that, I have a lot of like material to kind of like be finishing, and also trying to send to other people to feature on and stuff like that. So that's cool, and I've got all that going. But also I'm challenging myself now. Like today, I spent most of the day messing around with things like in Logic and just like trying to piece together stuff and like structure, like work on like the structure of songs and all that kind of stuff that I do actually really enjoy doing on my own, but I just usually never touch the computer because I'm so ADD. I'm like, there are other people that do this way better than I can, and it's like usually really collaborative, but it's like I don't know, like Umaru and I other like stems for things today, and yeah, back and forth. It's been I think it's going to be really for me to get back into that and to have a little more control like on the computer, you know, when it comes to the music. I'm really excited for that.
Okay, so I mean, it's at least challenging you and putting you in a new place.
Yeah.
You just mentioned features. Is there anyone who you're currently pulling on right now that you might want to shout out, or even, and this has worked before in previous interviews, not trying to brag or anything, but is there any sort of name you'd like to throw out there into the ether that you maybe haven't contacted yet, and you just hope that you know saying it will just send an angel to them, and then you know all of a sudden they'll just be curious and sort of want to do something?
Yeah. Well, I'm a really big fan of 645AR.
Okay. Yeah.
I would really like to get him involved in something. Would be really iconic. I'm trying to think who else I've like not reached out to. I'm looking at Weston right now. I'm trying to remember. Oh gosh, I get nervous whenever someone's like, "Who are your favorite artists?" or like this or that. I'm like I get really nervous. Well, I've been working on some stuff with Kieran J. Callanan that I'm excited about.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
The legend.
So I'm hoping that something can come together from that, which is will be really exciting. I was like meeting him, working with him was like I was like, we are brothers, like somehow. What's that? No, it was somebody else. Somebody new that's not expected. I'm too nervous to say anybody. I don't know. I have to think about it. I'll come back to that though.
That's fine. While he's not like, you know, a household name or anything, Kieran is enough for me. I mean, just to know that he's around somewhere. It's, you know, I worry about him during this time because he seems like he's naked all the time, and this is really a time where you should be putting on some extra layers. You know, like have a mask on. He seems like he'd just be, you know, I'm just going to go nude anyway. Fuck it.
I know. Yeah. I know. I know. I was watching his Instagram story, seeing him indoors building giant Jenga towers. So that's with like some little kid. So that's good. That's good.
Yeah. That's what you do.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, yeah. Let me ask you to move on about sort of the stuff you were alluding to earlier about representation and exposure and all that that's been coming with the popularity of your music, and also the recent Playboy shoot that you did. Like, how exactly did that go down, and sort of you know, from your own personal perspective, what has been the effect and reception of that? I've seen a bit of that, but I imagine you've seen much more of it than me.
Yeah, the Playboy thing was like so amazing. It was like a dream of mine. Like for, I don't know, I feel like since like 2016 when I just like started becoming more aware that they were doing like a few like cooler things, you know, here and there. And yeah, it was, we actually shot that back in September, like not the album came out, and they were like, they wanted to put it in the print issue. It was awesome, like as opposed to just doing an online thing. So I was like, okay. And they were like, let's just, you know, we'll do it in March. And the whole team there was so amazing. Like I was really, I really had no idea like what to expect, but I had a friend that also like writes for them sometimes, and so I knew from her that everybody was like super cool and like progressive, and they're really trying to turn it into something new and like fresh. And I think that like that does embody the original spirit of Playboy, like more so now than it has in the more recent past. but you know, as something as being progressive and being edgy in like a genuine way that's also like socially important and stuff. And yeah, that was so cool. And it's always like really fun to read the comments. I mean, I love to like fuck with people. Like I especially love reading like YouTube comments, like people being like, what the hell? Like, is this a man or a woman? Like, I don't know. I like the like troll part in me, or like the like some element of like shock rock, but like in a way that I'm like, well, it's not just for shock's sake, you know? It's like also trying to like challenge people in some meaningful way. But I do also like see these people get confused and be like somebody commented something like, oh my God, it was so funny. It was like, is this a man or I need to know if I be on that gay shit or not or something like that. It was so good. I commented like, you're definitely on gay shit, but like man or woman, I don't know, whatever. But yeah, it's always fun messing with people like that, seeing their actions.
Yeah, I mean, just from personally retweeting stuff that you've done that I like I'll see those responses and I'm just like, I even gotten some responses that are like, Anthony, stop fucking putting Dorian Electra into my feed, okay? It's like, why? Now I just want to do it more. Now I'm just going to do it more.
Yeah, I'm like, you know, you're doing something like worth doing if people are reacting in that way. Like to me, like if I see one of those kind of negative responses, like the fact that it like ruffled their feathers enough to like make them feel like they are like offended in some way or whatever, I'm like that just it motivates me so much more and just makes me want to like just keep doing more and more stuff, because it like I feel like that's almost like the last like essence of like anything like punk, really, because it's like so much of punk is just like cheesy aesthetic or whatever, you know, like, but I feel like when somebody can do something like that like to me, I'm all about like, I do love things to have like messages or like meaning to it, you know, but it's like a fun way to like fuck with people. And yeah, I love it when I see artists doing that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, to what extent when you are creating something, whether it be a song or a music video, especially at this point where, you know, you like I said earlier, you have, you know, your audience in mind now when you're making your new stuff or, you know, sort of coming through with a message, to also what extent are you thinking of, you know, who is this going to be a challenge to? And is this continuing to challenge, you know, preconceptions about who I am and what that means and my identity and, you know, whatever I'm trying to put forward in the song?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I feel like I'm always thinking about that. Like sometimes I wish I wasn't thinking about that. Sometimes I wish I was thinking about like just focusing on like making a good melody. But, you know, honestly, it's like I'm always thinking about like what music video, like what song, you know, if I'm making a song, I'm like, what would the music video look like? Or like, what would I like write as my statement in like the press release? Or like what merch could like we do that was some like exclusive thing I did this, or you know, whatever. I mean, I do love thinking in that way, but or yeah, like what comments and like what people are gonna get pissed off by this, or what people are like maybe not gonna understand this, and like the more I try to do something that's like more nuanced, you know, or like potentially controversial, like with some of the stuff I'm like working on now, you know, it's like kind of being like, I don't want to get these people too mad at me, but I don't want to but I also want these, you know, like I'm always thinking about that kind of thing. But I think the most important thing too is like, yeah, you're talking thinking about who it's challenging. I think also like always challenging myself. Like I always like to be a little bit unsure of something when I'm putting it out. Because if I'm like too sure about it, that means that it's like not necessarily challenging myself. Like I always want to be a little unsure as to how people are going to react, because then I feel like otherwise I'm doing something that is too predictable, and then thus probably not like that is as interesting or something, you know? Yeah. I always like to be surprised by like people's reactions in a certain way, you know? And challenging fans and stuff too, like not wanting to just give them what they expect either all the time.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to. Once you find yourself in that place where you're super comfortable with everything that you're doing, you know that you're just like operating from a place of predictability, I guess. And also, I mean, once you have an audience for what you're doing, even if you're not trying to, and you're doing just what you said earlier, just focusing on the melody or just how the song sounds or something, even in that context, everything that you do, it's almost like a social experiment, because it's all about how are people going to react. To kind of tie things up, let me maybe try to demystify you, or maybe have you help me do that for a second, for those who I know are going to react to this just like people do every time, like, who's this? What the hell are they all about? What does this mean? What gender, this, that, the other thing? Maybe not referring too much back to anything that's already been said, but is there anything about you that you wish people just kind of got or knew or understood off the bat that they just can't sort of seem to get from just looking at your music videos or just listening to a song or two right away?
Well, let's see. I'm not sure. I guess I kind of like even if they don't understand it, I like whatever question it like puts in their minds when they see my video, which is why I feel like the videos are so important to me, because it's like something like Career Boy or Man to Man for me would be totally incomplete. Like the message would be totally incomplete if I hadn't put it out with the video at first. So I feel like with the video, I try to fill in like not just the missing information, but also like the missing questions, like in people's minds. So even if it's just like a question, I like that because it like sparks more dialogue or like more intrigue, or like causes them to ask things about themselves also.
Well, I guess an interesting point that you're kind of making here is that for some weird reason, people get all these questions out of what you do or something similar to what you do, and as a result of that, they get this anxiety, and there's sort of like hostility as a result of that. And I guess whatever questions you have about it are okay. No one needs to feel weird or nervous or like upset or angry over not understanding everything that they're taking in here. The questions are fine, and wherever those questions take you, just like explore it and think about it and just leave it at that, I guess.
Totally, yeah. I mean, and then I would say the other thing is, like I just say, oh, I'm gender fluid, and I use like they, them pronouns, they, them, their. But also, it's like sometimes I'm like saying career boy, saying like he, him, or in things, or sometimes being really feminine, or, and I'm comfortable with that ambiguity and that fluidity. I think it's almost like, but even for people to learn about like asking about pronouns is like, that's a whole thing to even learn about. Like, I didn't even know about that, till like, I feel like all this is like relatively new in our like cultural dialogue and stuff. So I feel like it's really cool seeing the YouTube comments and how people will like answer each other's questions, or I'm surprised where people are like automatically using they, them pronouns when like they're like, I just discovered this artist. And that's cool too, because we're lucky in English that we even have that, because a lot of languages don't have a gender neutral pronoun that's built into the grammar and stuff. But we already use they, them for when we don't know the gender of a person, or we're talking about like multiple people or whatever. So yeah, it's really it's cool to see like that dialogue. But yeah, it's also okay. Like I'm also so open to questions, and like I'm not offended by that. Some people are more sensitive. Obviously, people need to be aware of that too. But for me, I'm very open with all that stuff. So yeah.
I guess my last question is just a personal one, going off of everything that you've just said. I feel like the one thing I'm personally missing out on with the gender fluidity thing is that I don't have sort of like a royal moniker to refer to you with, because I can't say, oh my God, Dorian Electra, total fucking king, or like total fucking queen. Like, is there a gender neutral sort of like royalty, sort of like moniker that I could sort of dub onto you, like when I am referring to you or something?
It's funny. So I actually use king a lot, and like a lot of people say king. That's my favorite one. Some people say queen, but I personally, I've
never heard quing.
Yeah, quing.
I've never fucking heard quing.
Like AWING, or a lot of people, which I really like this one, say my liege.
My liege. Okay, yeah. That works too. That fucking works too.
But honestly, king is great, and in fact, like, please call me king, because that's great. I love that.
Okay, I'm gonna do that then.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for being so open with everything and just having a great conversation. I appreciate it.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
And thank you for hosting.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And this will be shared to my thing and everything. I'm glad we could do this. This was really fun.
Yeah, I'll download it. I'll let you know if I have any issues with that. But I appreciate you hosting and just inviting me into your humble abode. I see a candelabra back there.
Oh, always. Oh, and that's the organ from Flamboyant, the music video.
Wonderful. Wonder you're living what you show us. You're
Yep.
practicing what you preach. You're
No,
walking the walk and you're talking the talk.
that's right.
All right, I'll talk to you later.
Alrighty, bye-bye.
All right, bye.